Alright, we have a game over here, game number 5 for this kind of team game show match. They play all 5 games over here. And we will have Viper, Hera, and BacT versus Yo, Liereyy, and MbL. The map is Team Islands, and everything seems to initialize. I'll have to do the scoreboard once again, but it is Mr. Yo's team with a 3-1 lead. In this one, they play all 5 games, and we are gonna have the left-hand side of the map. This is Hera's team. We will have a Viper in the pocket playing as Vikings in red, his native civilization. Malay for BacT in green, and Italians for Hera in blue. So they actually leave out Portuguese, just like the other team. No love for the Portuguese, which is interesting. I feel like Portuguese are super underrated in these scenarios. I actually anticipate at least one of the teams picking Portuguese, like Vikings, Italians, and Portuguese. And MbL is playing Mongols, which is a tricky civ to play. So you can go for rather fast fire galleys, but it's definitely one of the more landing-orientated civs, and MbL is definitely a player that could consider landing. We'll see how predictable that is going to be if he goes for it, though, because let's be honest, if I see Mongols on a Team Islands game like that, I would anticipate a landing. Now, we will have Liereyy as a Vikings pocket in a teal, and Mr. Yo is playing Italians in yellow. So the only difference is Mongols versus Malay. I think if MbL wants to land with Mongols and he fails, this should be a game for Viper's team, because Malay eventually will become super strong. Now the question is where you're gonna place your docks. I would say that the Viking player in this scenario could very well go for a fast castle longboats play. It's not really a play in 1v1s, probably not even 2v2s, but in 3v3s, the Viking player kind of has to go for the longboats at the back, and the 2 players on the sides will have to help them out and just protect these choke points. So I could see BacT like dropping the first few docks over here and going for fire galleys. Same thing for Hera with Italians. The real question is what MbL is going to be up to. Yeah, I totally agree with that, that the biggest thing that you get with Portuguese is that they pretty much eat the longboats with caravels, and I feel like that's a so big thing to have. So, back dock coming up here for Liereyy. He's gonna drop it somewhere over here. By the way, one thing I don't like about Lierey's scouting, let's talk about that in a moment. So, Liereyy isn't actually scouting the deeper parts of the water. So what you want here is potentially to get a little bit more vision on the deeper waters, so you know where to drop a dock. Like right now, Liereyy is dropping the dock over here, which is fine in terms of shorefish, but if you don't see any deep fish, there is a chance there is no deep fish here. That chance is rather small, and you should have at least one deep fish, but there is a chance you might end up with a pretty inefficient dock. And as you see, this is not an efficient dock for Liereyy. If he actually scouted this deep fish over here and think he could have spotted it from this point, then he would have dropped it over here instead, and this would be a lot more efficient dock. Not really a big deal, but once again, minor details to look for. That, for example, Nikov always tells that you at least look for one deep fish so you know where to drop your dock, so it is going to have at least one deep fish close by. That's actually a lot more important in 1v1s, because in 1v1s there is a higher chance you actually end up at a place where there is very little fish. Now, technically on Team Islands you can lure your boar in with your scout, and that way you save some villager time and some villager HP, but that's not something that any of the players are doing right now. They probably want to make sure they have their scouts together in case someone is actually going for landing. MbL is going to have a rather fast fuel age over here. He's the first one up. He's at 16 pop-up, so super fast. Didn't even go for a single fishing ship, and guess what MbL is going to land? Who would have thought? And the reason why he's picking Mongols is because he wants super fast fuel. Still, it's a little bit tricky to land, because if BacT, Hera, and Viper scout that, it's 3 scouts against 1 villager, so it's pretty hard to make sure that that villager actually is able to get a building up. By the way, you can see that players are going for loom. This is not something that you necessarily have to do, and some players sometimes decide to skip loom for the sake, like, for example, BacT, for the sake of having better fuel age time. Now BacT is going for it as well. But the reason why most people are actually doing Loom is because there is a high chance of landings, like any times. That also applies even for 1v1 island games. People are just, it's just better to go for Loom and not be surprised by landing and lose 5 villagers to 2 scouts. But sometimes players get greedy and they don't go for Loom and end up with a faster feudal time, but it could backfire, especially when your opponent is like MbL and he's playing feudal already with Mongols. He's out with the scout, and this is, I think, a mistake from MbL. He's showing his scout, which means that now Viper, BacT, and Hera know that there's a landing going on. I like that MbL dropped the barracks back at home in the stable on the front. That's probably what you want to do, because if you do this, even if your opponent counterlands you with scouts, you can make spearmen. And also, you don't waste time making a barracks over here that isn't really gonna have any important use anytime soon. Right now it's just a matter of getting some scouts in, but really I don't necessarily like Viper or MbL trying to pick off Viper scouts over there, because now his opponents know about its whereabouts, and as I said, it's still free scouts. So this is something that they can prepare for, like they can get Loom if they didn't have any. You can see Viper went for barracks, so he can actually go for defensive spearman if he needs to. And see, he goes for defensive spearman. In fact, he even adds a stable. This is interesting. Viper is adding a stable, so he kind of cancels his fast castle and goes for a stable and spearman. Whereas for BacT, he's not going for any defense right now. For Hera, he's gonna wall his villagers in for a time being, and he's gonna be fine with that. Anyways, no counter landing just yet, and Liereyy apparently is going for a quite late fast castle here. He's clicking up at 34 villagers. What is that for Liereyy? Like, 34 villagers is super late for a fast castle like this. Of course, it includes fishing ships as well. This is a super greedy FC from Liereyy, and I love that. Because right now, Viper's team is busy dealing with the scouts. Like, for example, Viper pretty much had to delay his fast castle. See, he's still not on gold. He's not on gold, he's making spearmen, and he's making scouts right now to deal with this aggression. Now, MbL is gonna bring in this scout of Liereyy, but that transport goes down, so is Lierey's scout. So I feel like that was just a little bit of a miscommunication here, and at the end of the day, MbL's landing isn't really going to accomplish much. The tower is pretty much gonna go down. Viper Spears will be fine here. It's a matter of question that could MbL do enough damage to help Liereyy out for an insane fast castle. Quick walls are failing over here for Hera. 4 scouts are still in here, and Hera could lose at least 1 villager in the fight, but no, MbL turns back, so one of the low HP villagers will be left alone. Still 2 villagers killed, so Hera took a significant beating, but Hera was able to mass galleys because MbL is not doing any navy. Left side, we haven't taken a look at that for a while, and it appears that BacT is just holding on to this one quite nicely. So Liereyy, he is still not going up. Is this a fast imp from Liereyy, or what the hell are we looking at? I mean, it's 40 villagers already, and he still hasn't clicked up. That's like a super sick eco for Liereyy. Still, MbL has quite a lot of scouts over here. I feel like with the spearman support, Hera needs to send a villager in here and wall this in, because they could wall this in right now, and that would be enough. Now, it appears that Yo is gonna be able to start dominating on water, and they will need the fleet of Hera. But once Hera arrives, I feel like they can push Yo back. You want to keep that demo alive and keep them away from the galleys. Nice micro from Yo, beautiful, look at that. Snipes off the demo and then comes back to fight. Hera, on the other hand, is picking off the fish from Yo, and Hera could still punish Yo over here quite hard, I believe. No fletching for Hera, there is fletching for Yo, so that's going to be interesting one to take a look at. Hera is just going for a blacksmith, so this is not a fight that he can take. Viper later to Castle Age than Liereyy, and he's also behind by 5 villagers. I think most of it is fishing eco, so Viper has 7 fishing ships. Liereyy has a sick fish boom. Liereyy has 10 fishing ships, even though BacT is in here with a few fire galleys. I like this play, because if Liereyy just went for full longboats, then these fire galleys would actually be able to do quite a lot of damage. Apparently Liereyy is going to open with a few galleys, so he can protect his fishing eco. In fact, he might actually open war galleys now that he's doing that. He's going to have a sick eco. And in the meanwhile, though, Yo is gonna have his fleet being chased down by Hera. And it appears that Viper's scouts will eventually be the ones fighting against MbL scouts. Hera was trying to avoid that stable aim, but the scouts actually scared him away. He needs to go now, while Viper is fighting the scouts. He needs to finish this one off. Because as long as this stable is in here, MbL can just disrupt this. And the sad thing about this is that you are using a Viper to fight this one, and that's awful. Because Viper is the Vikings player, and you want the Vikings player to have a lot of longboats, just like Liereyy. This is exactly what you need. Liereyy, completely untouched eco. He's gonna be able to add the second TC. He will be going for war galleys first, but then transition to longboats. Exactly the type of situation you want to be in. Whereas for Viper, he has to deal with those annoying little scouts. MbL is still in feudal age though, and looking at his eco, he is actually super far away from clicking up to castle, and that's actually pretty bad. Who's sponsoring this show match? I think the guy is called Is Green Heaven or something similar. He's an American guy. He's the one organizing and sponsoring this entire event. Nice snipe over there from MbL once again. MbL is really getting a good use for those scouts, killing quite a lot of villagers from Hera. And now there is already war galleys from Liereyy over here. I feel like MbL is doing enough disruption over here to justify for the landing. And that was the real question here. Can MbL be annoying enough to compensate for the fact that they are 3v2 on water? And yes, he can. Look at that, BacT had to wall himself. And more importantly, as I said, the biggest problem, Viper, he is still defenseless on water. Hera actually went forward with his galleys, but this means that Viper is losing fish. And Viper up to castle age he is, but no longboats on the horizon, no war galleys on the horizon. Actually, he's making longboats on the front dock over here, so he pretty much just gonna ignore those docks at the back. And Hera needs to wall this one in. They should send like 5 spearmen and wall this in, because as long as this is here, MbL will just keep sending in scouts. Eventually he will get bloodlines, eventually he will get defense upgrade, and he will just be constantly annoying against his opponent here, Hera. Now that being said, the Yo is just going up to castle age, and BacT is already up, so he's gonna have war galley a little bit faster. BacT, Hera, and Viper are all up to castle age, whereas there is only one castle age player from Mr. Yo's team, and Mr. Yo himself is about to reach castle. But look at Hera on the other hand, he's down to 30 villagers. That's what a landing can do to you. That's what a landing can do to you, and you have to use your Vikings player to make knights, and that's the worst situation. Hera is just getting absolutely torn apart here. I feel like it would have been just better to have Hera drop a barracks himself. Because like Viper is trying to help, but the spearman takes so much time to get in here, and Hera is like losing way too much. He isn't even bothering sending these villagers back home. He's at 26 villagers. So it's a matter of, can BacT and the Viper carry this on water? And I don't think that's the case. Because Yo's got quite a lot of galleys in here. They could pop out to be war galleys anytime soon. Those will be war galleys as well. And Liereyy eventually is going to have a huge fleet. So right now Liereyy is just booming. He's got 62 eco, by far the best in the game. And since he's not consuming a lot of food, that pretty much means that he can have a pretty sick Imperial time himself. Hera trying to take the fight against Yo's ships here, and he will do so. But behind this one, he's got 25 villagers. If you look at the combined villager count, Yo's team possesses a 30 villagers lead right now. Now, if Yo loses his docks, that might still be problematic. Liereyy looping around to try and hit Viper's food eco, as we're gonna have MbL also coming in with the scouts. Now he has bloodlines and +1 attack as well. A lot of those scouts are low HP though. Viper has TCs on his key resources, so I don't think he's gonna lose a lot of villagers, but idle time could still be a thing. Hera still making his ships, and he's going for the docks of MbL. MbL, remember, he doesn't have a fishing eco, and MbL is just going up to castle age. So if Hera can add a second TC over here, he might still be able to stabilize, and now they're finally voting in MbL's position. In this case, I'm starting to say that they have at least some chance, even though I feel like Liereyy being this untouched, 3 TC boom with Vikings, 75 villagers already, 33 military, he's just gonna be able to outperform Viper way better, because Viper had to make knights. And Viper has lost his fishing eco. Look at this mass migration coming in here. Liereyy, on the other hand, untouched fishing eco, untouched land eco. All he had to do is just make ships. Still, at some point, MbL is going to have to start adding ships, and that's going to be the tricky part. So, the Mongols player isn't going to be particularly amazing at adding ships. In fact, MbL's gold mine over here is something that could be threatened. This village is just sitting in the fire. It's fine, says the lady. And MbL is losing his docks as well. Yo did lose all of his docks, so right now the only player with a reasonable amount of docks is Liereyy, and he has all the docks at the back. BacT, how is he doing on the water? He is doing okay. Viper still without his fishing eco though, and that's actually he has quite a lot of fishing eco at the front, and Viper is great at fish booming. Looking at the combined villager count, the deficit is down to 20, so oh boy. We're starting to get lags once again, so I might need to disable Capture Rage for this. We had this issue in one of the games. I hope it's not gonna be persistent. Because if it is, then I'll have to disable Capture Rage overlay and just play with the standard one. Anyways, BacT is gonna trade off the ships over here, which is perfectly fine for them. At least Viper can get back to his fishing eco. In fact, Viper's gonna fish on the front. And as I said, a couple of minutes back, we had a 30 villagers lead for Yo's team. Now it's just a 20 villagers lead. And Liereyy looping around with the war galleys. Viper doesn't really have a lot of ships. What is Viper up to? Viper is isn't really doing much. He's just booming, and he's gonna add a TC number 4. So he knows he's behind. He's just gonna focus on booming like a madman to catch up with Liereyy. In reality, he is still 20 villagers behind. But if you look at the other players, MbL is 42 villagers, Hera is 33. That's not that big of a difference, if you ask me, especially considering Hera is on 2 TCs and MbL, I believe, is on 1, just making the second and third TC. Hera has a lot of idle time here, though, and that TC is dangerously exposed to the War Galley rate, so Hera might be down to 1 TC very soon. Looking at BacT, BacT is the one that is in a pretty solid spot. He's actually better in terms of economy compared to Yo, and what makes this great for BacT is look at the resources. He could be considering a rather fast Imperial Age. Here. He has the food almost ready to click up, and he isn't really far away in terms of gold, and that would be a pretty significant advantage to have one player in Imperial, even though Liereyy is also going to imp, and as I said, I feel like the fact that they managed to delay Viper and Viper's eco build-up is just crazy. Viper is also clicking up to Imperial, but he's still behind by 16 villagers, so not as bad as it could be for Viper, but not as good as it could be. I feel like MbL's landing really had its effect. Now, that being said, Yo's navy is just absolutely nowhere. Yo's got 7 military. BacT is also to Imperial, and look at that. BacT is gonna be the fastest player to imp. Actually, the second fastest, because Liereyy is gonna be a little bit faster. But it's going to be 2 Imperial Age players against just 1. MbL is going for a light cav. You really gotta wonder if he's gonna land once again, and indeed he will. He will try landing once again, and look at that. Liereyy is pulling up the war galleys to protect the transport ship. Hera didn't notice the transport just yet, and Liereyy once again is going to try and get a landing done. Transport going in the other direction. No ships over there to stop him. Other side, however, Yo's got no fleet, and that is getting scarier and scarier. Like, Liereyy is a great fleet, but it's 2v1, and Liereyy is still making war galleys. That's the other thing. So Viper's longboats eventually will be better in the long run. And look at this. Liereyy is taking this fight, but MbL might actually go unnoticed. Is he gonna go unnoticed? Nope. Viper sees the building immediately, and there's a second stable coming up. War galleys from Hera immediately dispatched to deal with this one, finishing off the transport ship. I feel like this landing from MbL is gonna be a fail. And Viper's team is actually winning this one now, I believe. Galleon for Liereyy. So once again, no longbows just yet. He's going for Galleon chemistry. This is not a fight that Hera wants to take against Galleon. Same thing here for BacT. And I believe I'll have to disable Capture Rage if these lags continue. Still, if you look at Lierey's fleet, he's got 57. And meanwhile, Viper's team combine for 50. So massive advantage for Liereyy over there. But once there is 2 Imperial Age players, Viper's gonna have... Viper's going War Galley. That's weird. Viper's going War Galley instead of getting Bracer and Chemistry. That's so weird, and we're gonna have fast fire ships for BacT instead of Galleons. He actually went for Galleon upgrades already. Now Viper cancels, and he's gonna go for Elite Longboat indeed. MbL's landing is actually successful. He rolls his Voyagers in. Give me a moment, I'll have to disable Capture Age, and I'll have to talk to the Capture Age guys about performance issues. So here's what we're gonna continue with. It's unfortunate, but it happens. It's still a pre-release thing. So, MbL's making quite a lot of knights over here. In fact, I think he broke through the walls, so this means he has double stable knights to work with. And that gets pretty scary, because if he can just idle Viper's Eco, Viper could once again be in trouble. In fact, Viper's Eco isn't looking shiny at all. And in the middle, we have longboats with no careening. There is no careening for Liereyy either, but no chemistry for Viper either. Elite longboat as well. It looks like a fight that Liereyy is winning, and as I said, it might be enough for Lierey's team to just have Liereyy with a full boom and have the eco power to win this one, because when you have an untouched Vikings player, that might be just enough. And Yo pops out with fast fire ships. Yo is up to Imperial as well, and that is a pretty horrible spot to be in for Viper. Pretty much surrounded by fast fire ships. Viper is trying to micro away, but here's where MbL comes into play. He's just gonna send in the knights and cripple Viper's eco. Viper right now, as you can see over here, 85 Voyagers for Viper, and for Liereyy that's probably like 104. Liereyy is just in a much better spot, and I feel like MbL's raids are crippling the eco of Viper and Hera just enough to enable Liereyy to steamroll the water, and that's exactly what we're seeing over here. MbL is being extremely disruptive on the water, or on land. Just those knights are making so many things happen, and I think the real key here is that he's trading off the Mongol player for the Viking player, and that's huge. And yeah, I'm not gonna... It's hard to say who's the MVP, but as funny as it sounds like, it's either Liereyy or MbL, but I would dare to say that it's MbL. Because MbL made miracles happen with pretty little. So he landed with 2 Voyagers, and he caused so much disruption even with the first wave, killing a bunch of Voyagers from Hera. And the second wave also came in just in time, even though the War Galleys came in here. Like, Viper is gonna make a castle, sure, but look at that. Viper is forced to make crossbows now. He's forced to chase knights, and if you look at the water, it is just an absolute disaster. Galleons from Liereyy everywhere on the water, and just look at these numbers. And Yo is now transporting as well. Yo is probably going to transport for Condottieri, and I think that's over. Yo is gonna have the fast fire ships here as well. Viper has no fleet, and I think the key, once again, is that it's the Mongols player getting traded to the Vikings player. If Hera was the one fighting against this aggression, like if Hera was the one making the scouts like Viper did, and the spears, this would be completely different. But the key here is that Vikings with an untouched eco will just steamroll everything. In fact, I'm surprised Liereyy is not going for longboats. He's just going for galleons. Viper is 88 pop, Liereyy is 200. What are we even talking about? We're talking about nothing. And MbL, as I said, it's a matter of you anticipate MbL to go for landing. But can you stop him? And the answer was no. A big, big, big no over here. MbL comes in clutch here with a landing, and this is going to mark the end of this show match. We have a 4-1 scoreline, I think somewhat surprisingly, because like BacT actually played pretty good against Mr. Yo, so I wouldn't say it was the difference that BacT made. Viper and Hera both had good games, it's just a matter of how they played it. Like, if you remember the... like this game, for example, the MbL landing that came in so well for them. Then you had Mr. Yo's insane performance on High Tide. Then you had Arabia, Liereyy winning quickly against Hera. The Golden Pit game that Liereyy and MbL lost eventually, but there they also had their chance to win. It was just a matter of miscommunication in terms of strategies. And yeah, I think we went through all 5 of the games. 4 wins for Yo, Liereyy, and MbL. And Liereyy, that KD couldn't have happened without MbL. And MbL being positive that with that KD is just sick. Really, if we compare Viper and Liereyy, you're gonna see a huge difference in eco, and this is what matters. 7,000 more wood for Liereyy, 1,000 more gold, and Liereyy even sent some slinging to his teammates. So with that, I believe that MbL's landing really worked well, and the fact that he could basically take out Viper's Vikings from the game and allow Lierey's Vikings to be played well is what decided this game, basically. Because BacT and Yo were pretty much even. The difference was that Liereyy had an absolutely untouched deco, and he was able to steamroll everything on water with a scoreline of 4-1. Once again, thanks a bunch for the sponsor of this show match for organizing this. It was a great one. He's, I think, called In Green Heaven or something very, very similar. Thanks a lot for putting this together. It was a fun show match. I actually enjoyed it. Reminded me a little bit to like Escape Champions League, where you had a mixture of 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s. So really, the winning team gets $360, losing team gets $240. So it's a pretty nice show match, and I'm really happy that we could have this one. So once again, shout out to the sponsor and host.